Okay, so let's dive in. Picture this. It's 2010, and suddenly this
Hmm.
piece of malicious code surfaces. And it's not just any code. It changes the game, completely rewrites the rules of, well, warfare, really.
Yeah, you're talking about Stuxnet. And you're right. This wasn't some battlefield thing. It happened silently, digitally.
You sent over a whole stack of materials on this,
Mm.
research analysis. It's pretty deep.
It is. And Stuxnet, well, it wasn't your average computer worm.
Yeah.
When they found it in 2010, the analysis suggested it was probably being worked on for years, maybe back to 2005 even.
Target. Incredibly specific. High-stakes stuff.
Absolutely. It was built to go after SCADA systems, that's supervisory control and data acquisition, and PLCs, programmable logic controllers.
Basically, the brains running big industrial sites.
Exactly. And the main target, based on all the evidence we have, seems to have been Iran's uranium enrichment program, specifically that Natanz facility.
So yeah, this wasn't malware trying to steal your credit card number or anything like that.
No. This was designed, really, to cause physical damage, to disrupt, maybe even destroy equipment using just software.
Which was just unheard of.
It really was. The precision, the stealth. It was on another level for its time. It wasn't just spying. It was built to actively subvert systems and make things break down physically.
Sounds like techno-thriller material. So our mission here, looking at these sources, is to unpack what made Stuxnet so revolutionary.
Right. And how something this complex was even discovered.
And then the big question, who might have been behind it?
Yeah, and finally, its legacy. Because it definitely left a mark on cyberspace.
Okay, let's start with what made it so different. Revolutionary, even.
Well, the biggest leap, as you said, was from digital to physical.
It wasn't just messing with data, it was breaking machines.
That's the core difference.
Yeah.
Malware had caused disruptions, sure, but Stuxnet is, well, the first widely known piece of code designed to physically wreck hardware. The sources are clear. It was engineered to make centrifuges spin themselves apart.
And the tech behind that,
Yeah.
it was just wild for 2010.
Oh, completely. One of the most startling things was its use of 4 zero-day vulnerabilities in Windows.
4. And 0 days are those secret flaws, right?
Yeah.
The ones nobody knows about yet.
Technically, not even Microsoft. So there's no patch, no defense ready. Finding 1 0-day is a huge deal, very valuable. Using 4 in one weapon, that was just, wow. It screamed massive resources. And it used other known vulnerabilities, too, like one the Conficker worm used.
So it had multiple ways in.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just hitting any Windows machine, was it? It was looking for something specific.
Very specific. It was hunting for Siemens SCADA systems, their PLCs, software like PCS7, WinCC, Step 7.
Okay.
But it went even deeper. It needed Siemens S7-300 controllers connected to very specific variable frequency drives, VFDs. These were made by either Vaken or Farpaya.
VFDs.
Yeah.
They control motor speed, like for the centrifuges.
Precisely. So it was like this digital assassin looking for a very particular setup, make, model, the whole deal.
And when it found its target,
Then it deployed its payload. And it was subtle. It would tweak the frequency driving those VFDs, making the centrifuges spin too fast, then too slow, oscillating around the normal 101064 hertz to damaging frequencies like 1410 hertz, then down to 2 hertz, causing stress over time.
but the operators wouldn't see this happening.
That's the insidious part. It pulled off a man-in-the-middle attack inside the control system. It basically intercepted the signals going to the operator's screens.
So the screen showed everything was fine.
Looked perfectly normal, all systems green. Meanwhile, Stuxnet was sending the malicious commands directly to the VFDs, telling the centrifuges to spin destructively.
Wow. So the people watching thought everything was okay while their equipment was basically destroying itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to hide itself even better, it was the first known malware to use a PLC rootkit.
So it wasn't just on the computers, it was hiding inside the industrial controllers themselves.
Deep inside, making it incredibly hard for typical security software to find. It could mask its own presence and actions right there on the controller.
Okay, so given all that stealth, that complexity, how did anyone outside Natanz even find out about it?
Well, the first clues were probably physical. At Natanz, maybe starting around January 2010, centrifuges just started failing, a lot more than usual.
But they wouldn't have known why, right? If the panels looked okay.
Probably not initially. You'd think, okay, maybe bad parts, technical glitches, something like that. The digital discovery came later, June 2010.
How did that happen?
A security company in Belarus, Virus Blokada, got called in. Some company in Iran had computers that were just crashing over and over. Blue screens, reboots.
Wait, crashing computers.
Yeah.
Not the industrial systems.
Right, and that's key. The NATAN's control systems were supposed to be air-gapped, physically separate from the internet.
So how did it get out?
The analysis suggests maybe a programming mistake in an update. It might have accidentally spread beyond that air gap, maybe onto, say, an engineer's laptop via a USB stick that had been plugged into the control network, and then that laptop got connected to the internet somewhere else.
Ah, the classic air gap jump via removable media. The weapon escaped its cage.
Seems like it. And once it hit internet-connected machines, antivirus labs like Virus Blockada and then Symantec, they got samples.
And they realized this was something different.
Oh, yeah. They knew pretty quickly this wasn't ordinary malware. Symantec did a lot of the early public breakdown. They first called it W32 Temfid, but the name Stuxnet stuck. Came from keywords in the code, apparently things like stub and mrxnet.tesis.
Must have been a nightmare to reverse engineer.
Absolutely monumental, and as they picked it apart, they found more layers, like it had safeguards built in. It only spread to maybe 3 other machines from one infected PC.
Trying to limit its own spread.
Seems that way. And it even had a kill switch, a date June 24th, 2012, when it was designed to just erase itself. So it wasn't meant for random chaos, even though it did eventually spread beyond the target. Highly engineered specific parameters.
Which brings us back to that precision targeting and just the sheer quality or maybe sophistication of the code.
Definitely. It was laser focused.
Built for one job, one place.
Absolutely. The sources really stress this. Stuxnet had all these internal checks. If it landed on a machine and didn't find that Siemens software or didn't detect those specific VFDs and motor frequencies, it would just stay dormant, do nothing.
It scanned its environment before acting.
Right. Looking for that very specific digital fingerprint before it unleashed the payload.
And it stayed hidden for so long.
Months, maybe years if you count the development time back to 2005 or so.
Yeah.
Being active on systems that long without detection, especially with what it was doing, that's incredible stealth.
How did it manage that? Especially getting onto presumably secure air-gapped systems. Besides the USB theory.
Well, one key technique was using stolen digital certificates.
Ah, like fake ID badges.
Kind of, but even better because they were real badges stolen from legitimate companies. J-Micron and Realtek, hardware makers in Taiwan. These certificates tell Windows, hey, this software is trustworthy.
So Stuxnet could install itself deep into the system without setting off alarms.
Exactly. It could install kernel mode rootkit drivers, that's really deep, privileged access without any user pop-ups or security warnings. It just looked like legitimate system stuff installing.
Very sneaky. Showing up with verified credentials.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the code itself, huge for the time. 0.5 MB, written in different languages, C, C++ off. The analysts figured it would take a decent-sized team, maybe 5 to 30 skilled people, working for 6 months or more just to build it.
Okay, that's a serious investment, a major operation.
Which naturally leads everyone to ask, who? Who has the resources, the motive, the capability for something like this?
Yeah, the complexity of the target. It screams nation state, doesn't it? All the sources point that way.
Overwhelmingly. No government has ever put their hand up and said, yeah, that was us. But, you know, multiple credible news outlets like the New York Times and top security researchers who took the code apart, they pretty much concluded it was a joint operation.
Between the U.S. and Israel, reportedly.
That's the consensus, yeah. The effort supposedly had a code name, Operation Olympic Games. Started under President Bush, ramped up under President Obama.
And the Times reported on this.
They did, in detail. And later leaks, like the ones from Edward Snowden, apparently provided more evidence supporting that U.S.-Israeli collaboration.
And the security firms, looking purely at the code, reached similar conclusions.
Independently, yes. Places like Kaspersky Lab, F-Secure, they basically said, look, the sophistication, the specific target, this has to have nation-state backing. You even get these slightly cryptic quotes from U.S. officials, like Gary Samore, that sound like a nod and a wink acknowledgement.
There are other little clues mentioned in the sources too, right?
Yeah, some circumstantial stuff. Reports about a video shown at a retirement party for Israel's military chief that allegedly referenced Stuxnet as a success. Plus, analysis suggesting Israel had the technical chops and, frankly, the strategic motivation to want to delay Iran's nuclear program using cyber means instead of, say, airstrikes. There was even speculation they might have tested it on actual P-1 centrifuges they'd somehow acquired.
And that recent report about a Dutch engineer.
Right. January 2024 reporting suggests a Dutch guy, Eric van Sabin, supposedly working for Dutch intelligence, maybe on behalf of the CIA in Israel. He might have been the one to physically carry it into Natanz, possibly on that USB stick.
So no official confirmation, but the smoke seems to be billowing pretty strongly from the U.S.-Israel direction.
That's the main thrust of the analysis and reporting you shared, yeah. Early on, people threw out other ideas. China, Jordan, France, maybe an inside job from Siemens or Russian contractors, but most evidence trails seem to lead back to the U.S. and Israel.
What about those symbolic clues, things found in the code itself? MYRTUS.
Ah, yeah, MYRTOS, which connects to Hadassah, Queen Esther's Hebrew name. And there were dates embedded too. May 9, 1979, the day a prominent Iranian Jew was executed. September 24th, 2007. Ahmadinejad gave that controversial speech at Columbia.
Definitely seems suggestive.
It does. But Symantec and others were quick to point out, hey, this could also be misdirection, planted clues to throw people off the scent. Spycraft 101, maybe?
True. Either way, regardless of exactly who held the keyboard, the goal seems pretty clear. Mess with Iran's uranium enrichment. Slow it down. Disrupt it.
That seems to be the widely accepted geopolitical objective, yes.
Okay. But even with all that careful planning and targeting, things didn't go exactly according to plan, did they? It got out.
It did. That suspected programming error may be related to how it spread via USB. It meant Stuxnet didn't stay confined to Natanz, it escaped into the wild.
And it spread quite widely.
Massively. The analysis suggests over 200,000 computers got infected across the globe. Now, most weren't damaged because they didn't have that specific Siemens setup.
But about 1,000 machines actually suffered physical damage.
Around that number, yeah. Those were the ones that matched the target profile.
Still, even for the ones not damaged, just the discovery of this thing must have sent shockwaves.
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge wake-up call, globally. Suddenly, everyone was talking about cyber offense, cyber defense, especially for critical infrastructure and industrial control systems.
It put ICS and OT security on the map in a big way.
A huge way. Led to way more focus, more investment in locking down these operational technology networks. And, it really accelerated the militarization of cyberspace.
How so?
Well, nations saw what was possible. They realized, okay, cyber weapons like this exist. So they started building up their own capabilities, both for defense and, let's be honest, probably for offense, too. National cyber commands popped up or got much bigger pretty quickly after Stuxnet.
And the infection spread beyond just Iran's nuclear program accidentally.
Right. The reports mention it even hit systems at a Russian nuclear power plant, though apparently it couldn't do damage because that plant was properly air-gapped.
And Iran itself saw more Stuxnet activity later.
Apparently so. Reports suggest Iranian industrial sites, including a power plant, were targeted again in 2012. Maybe reused code, maybe a variant. It's not entirely clear from the sources.
There was even an attempt on North Korea.
Yeah, an attempt was reportedly made to use a version against North Korea's nuclear program, but it failed. Probably because North Korea is just so incredibly isolated, digitally speaking. They likely couldn't even get the malware onto the right systems.
So looking back, what's the lasting impact? What's the legacy of Stuxnet?
I mean, it really did open Pandora's box. It proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that computer code could cross that line from the digital world and cause real physical destruction.
The first true cyberkinetic weapon, as it's often called.
Exactly. It wasn't theoretical anymore. And its existence just forced everyone, governments, security pros, the public, to grapple with really tough questions we're still dealing with.
Like, what are the rules for cyber conflict? Are there any?
Right. Cyber norms. And what's a proportional response? If someone damages your infrastructure with code, how do you respond? Does international law even apply properly here? Huge questions.
And it inspired others, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. It basically provided a blueprint, or at least showed what was possible. We saw a whole new generation of sophisticated malware, advanced persistent threats, or APTs, specifically targeting industrial control systems after Stuxnet.
You mean things like Triton or Indestroyer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Triton going after safety systems, Indestroyer targeting power grids, you can see the influence. And analysis also found links between Stuxnet and other major malware discoveries around that time, like Duqua.
Stuxnet's secret twin, they called it, focused on spying.
Yeah, gathering intelligence. And Flame, this massive espionage platform, they apparently shared some code modules suggesting maybe the same developers or at least shared resources.
And potential links to the Equation Group, too, that highly sophisticated actor.
That connection has been suggested as well, based on shared exploits or techniques. On Iran's side, they eventually admitted they had problems, put together a response team, and claimed they cleaned it up. They definitely pointed fingers at foreign powers.
The sources also mention, just for context, the assassinations of Iranian scientists around that time.
Yes, they note that occurred during the period Stuxnet was active. There was speculation in some reports linking the events, but the sources don't offer definitive proof. Either way, it could be related, could be separate factors.
So Stuxnet fundamentally changed our perception of cyber threats. It showed that digital can directly impact the physical.
Absolutely, it blurred the lines.
Which leaves us with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? If Stuxnet was just the beginning, the first time this kind of capability really came into the public eye, what does the future hold for cyber warfare? And maybe more importantly for you listening, in this hyper-connected world, how do we actually protect ourselves, our communities, the critical systems we all rely on, from the next Stuxnet?